Hello, and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. This week, to start the show out, we're going to begin with the introduction. Kevin?
This is the intro to Season 5, where no more messing around, no more half-assed introductions. This is it. We've got our game faces on now. We've got pre-recorded...
I forgot we were doing the intro to Season 5. I completely forgot that we were doing the intro, because I was like, we'll just do the normal thing, go on. Oh no, this is actually pretty important. It's the first time you're going to hear it. This season, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, the last season was like 3 weeks ago.
That's fair.
I don't... Have we got anyone to thank?
Yeah. Oh, your man who bought the t-shirt there. Cahill Brian de Cantoul. Shout out to Big Cahill. And then...
And yeah, just before we record, or just as we started this recording, we got some coffee money in from Kimberly H. So thank you, Kimberly. We love you as well.
And what did Kimberly say?
She said, "Just discovered the podcast. I love it so much. 3 exclamation marks. P.S. Kevin is my favorite of the 2 hosts." Interesting.
See, I to be honest, all I'd read from that message was Kevin was my favorite host. I didn't see any of the platitudes beforehand.
No. And don't bother going to look and read that comment, because I've read it to you verbatim, and there's no reason to second guess me.
Tell me this now, Kev. Is that a comment on the Buy Me a Coffee, or is it a review that she left on like Apple Podcasts or on iTunes or on any of the places we do telling people to go leave reviews, because it really helps the algorithms, so more people can listen to our shite.
It was a comment on Buy Me a Coffee, but if you want to go to buymeacoffee.com and send us some money, then you can copy Kimberly's comment from there, bring it over to iTunes or whatever podcast app you're listening to, paste it in. Actually, you don't even need to write the review, just hit the star thing and then listen. If you want to leave a review...
Also write the review, because sometimes when I get sad, I will go read the good ones.
Yes, that's fair enough. So write the reviews. Most of our reviews come from American listeners, because Irish people don't write reviews.
Because there's no button on Buy Me a Coffee for a head nod that just indicates fair play.
Yes, yeah. If there was some sort of review that was just lifting 2 fingers off the steering wheel as you pass someone on a country road, that's the sort of accolades I want. But if you don't feel like sending us money for listening to this podcast, you're like, what do I get in return? Why would I send you cash if I don't get anything apart from a new podcast episode every week? Well, then you can go over to Big Cartel, Shy Talk History, and purchase a Shy Talk t-shirt. And now, for the month of January, and I mean realistically probably February as well, we've got a tie-dyed variant.
Am I getting a tie-dyed variant? Will Lisa make me one?
Yes.
And also, when you're sending the t-shirts to America, will you finally send me one? Because you've sent multiple now to our fans, and I've gotten nothing.
Well, yeah, but you're not a fan of the show.
I'm the host.
Well, listen.
If I can't get the merch from my own podcast...
Your t-shirt is waiting for you here at home, along with all of the money that I have resting in my account, which I have assured you it's in a big novelty check, and I'll give it to you at the airport when you get back.
If you could collect me from the airport with a big giant sign that says, like, the actual check, that's my handler as well.
Yes, yeah, I'll pick you up from the airport. I'll wait at the gate with a sign saying Mr. Shy Talk. But one other thing we're going to try and do a bit more of over the next couple of months, because it looks like we're all going to be in lockdown until at least April. Myself and Jason will be offering up our services for coffee mornings, pint evenings, work social events, bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras. If you want us to read off raffle tickets, if you want us to record you a Valentine's Day message, we'll do it all. No job too small, too large.
We should set up a cameo. We should do a cameo for our fans.
What's a cameo?
That's the thing where sad people pay celebrities to give them personalized messages.
Oh, yeah, we could do that.
So did you never see the woman from, what's the name of the woman from Tiger King?
Oh, damn, this year.
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin. God, this year has gone by so quickly. I forgot about Carol Baskin.
I know. We're nearly a year since Tiger King.
Yeah, Jesus.
But she did a cameo I saw a few weeks ago where someone sent in a message like, I was just reading happy birthday, and she just said, happy birthday to Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein. And
amazing.
Yeah, it's good. I do like the internet for things like that.
Yeah. I was just thinking, it is almost a year since Tiger King. It's almost a year since It's almost a year since the start of COVID, which means that people will finally have to stop using the word unprecedented. In about a month, everything will have a precedent. So we can finally stop saying that.
America will have a new president.
America will have a new president. Brexit will be done. GDPR is already set. COVID will be finished. We'll all have to find new inane things to talk about around.
And I'll be back in Ireland.
Virtual water coolers. And Jason will be back. 2021, we'll all just get back to fucking good old family values. We'll all start worrying about why the environment is on fire and how many fish have we killed this week. But if you want us to come and talk about fun things like dead fish at your office, morale boosting coffee morning thing, you can send us a message on Instagram at ShyTalkHistory, or you can email us at ShyTalkHistory@gmail.com.
Or you can call us on Kevin. Do you want to give out your personal phone number there?
No, because you give away your personal phone number, and how's that going for you so far?
Good. I got a message at Christmas time from a fan saying hope it was well.
Yeah,
it was class.
All right. Well, if you want to get in contact with
us, let me see if I can find that. I'll read it out. No, I got a message from one of our fans, Zach. He sent me a message at Christmas time. I think it was on Christmas Day, I think, which was really nice.
That's lovely.
Wishing me well and hope I wasn't lonely and all. So fair play, Zach. I do now remember that you may have sent Zach's T-shirt to the wrong address.
Yes, because you were telling me about that.
I was meant to maybe facilitate letting him know about that?
Because you were telling me that he'd messaged you, and was it that he's in Texas as well?
Yeah, he's up in Dallas, and you sent it to Massachusetts.
I sent it to the address that was on the order. So, Zach, if that T-shirt hasn't arrived yet, maybe give your old landlord a shout, or listen, get in touch with us, and we'll sort it out. I think there's a few other people in America who I sent a message out during the week, but especially if you're in the States and you're waiting for the T-shirt to arrive. An Post is pretty backed up here at the minute between COVID and Brexit, but everything should hopefully be there by the end of the month. Hopefully you've gotten it by the time you listen to this.
Prune juice is good for that, I hear.
Yeah.
Been backed up.
Yeah. Just take a laxative and hopefully it'll be there by the end of the month. But that's it. I don't think we've anything else.
That's the intro, the first one of the season done, Kev.
Yeah.
We can get on to this story about Irish lads touching each other and pulling each other to the ground and stuff.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish lineage to find. Joseph from Carlo and Kevin the dog guide you through the ways of Shine's.
The Tall Teen Games, the Tall Teen Fair, a Nook Tall Teen, Assembly of Tall Tea, Fair of Tall Two, or Festival of Tall Tea, were what is known as funeral games in pre-Christian Ireland. Kevin, did you ever hear about that festival?
What were you saying about tall adolescents? What about the short teen games?
It's called the Community Games. It's in Mosney every year.
Oh yeah, not for a while.
No, these were funeral games that used to happen back in the day. It was set up by a man called... I'm going to quickly give you a bunch of information now and then tell you I'm not going to deep dive into it, and we'll do another episode next season.
Okay. So when you say funeral games, you mean like games at a funeral?
Yeah, with funeral games where we Irish people, we're good crack around funerals, like wakes, we like drinking, not crying apart from when we're on our own over in the corner, like those kind of things. Yeah, the funeral games were a way to mark and celebrate the dead. We'd play games, you'd do like it'd be like the king of the town type deal, but as a funeral game.
Just at a funeral, as a way to lighten the mood.
Well, it would be once a year. It'd be a once a year type deal. It was the Lulum Fada, is the son of another famous fella, and was it Cullen? Possibly. Hold on. Look, I'm not getting into it. There's a fella called Lulum Fada. It was his stepmother that did something, and then she died. So to mark that, he would. I'm not going into the Book of Invasions. What the feckin' Olam is. The Tall Teen Games. No, we'll do that afterwards.
For another day. So his mother died, and he started.
I'm advising everybody to not Google it. Right?
Yeah.
Because I will do an episode on it. It's just, it's way too much. This is going to be a long enough episode anyway. We don't have time. It's I'll do it in August, I swear. Right? The games were set up as an ode to his stepma / foster ma, not fully sure which one, Tall Chew. Now,
Right.
Telltown is between Navan and Kells, County Meath, originally Talteen, named after the person who they honoured originally, his ma, Tall Chew. The original games were said to take place as far back as 1600, or maybe over 200 years before that. BC, I meant to say, like the old one.
Oh,
the
right,
one
so
before,
yes. Okay, yeah.
before Christianity. That's the one.
Yeah.
They ran until 1169/1171 AD, so quite a while.
It's impressive that they can run that long and they're still like, it was either this year or a 2-year gap is pretty good considering how long ago it was.
Well, see, they died out with the Norman invasion and the likes, so they probably
okay.
weren't keeping records by that stage. They were too busy just trying to stay alive,
Sure.
and keep their wives. But one of the sports that was played during this Tall 2 games is something known, Kevin, as collar and elbow wrestling, which at the time was the number one sport in Ireland.
The number one sport in Ireland was collar and elbow wrestling.
Yeah, fighting.
Right.
Right, like Irish wrestling, there's a bunch of names for this. I could call it Irish wrestling, Irish Celtic wrestling, scuffling, Irish scuffling, square hold wrestling, box wrestling, Irish style scuffling, Coriocht,
Okay.
wrestling. Brolodhiocht, which it just means like the front of the shirt or collar, or Coriocht collar agus ul, which is just
collar
and elbow.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't forgotten all my Irish.
There
Still
you go.
some there.
That's what they teach you in day one. You gotta learn the words collar and the words elbow, and it all comes together then in 6th class.
It's again, I will talk about it afterwards. But Cú Cullen was the son of Lou, your man who made it for his step / foster ma.
So this is Cuchullen's grandma / step grandma.
Yeah, but your man who invented the games is Cú Cullen's dad.
Okay.
And Cú Cullen was because he was said to be not only a great man to swing the hurl and slitter, Kevin.
Yep, Loud's finest.
But a great wrestler.
Yeah, that is what he was known for. He was always togging out after the games of hurl, getting naked in the dugouts and wrestling lads. Oh God, he was great.
Stone Cold Stunner and Vince McMahon. He was well known for it.
Yeah.
But did you ever hear that, or was that? I think that's been forgotten now throughout the history.
Well, listen, I'm flattered that you think that if I haven't heard of it, it's been forgotten by history. But no, I don't know. I hadn't heard that. No.
I didn't know about it previously, and now I've said it to you, and you didn't know about it. Therefore, it's a lie.
It's gone.
It doesn't exist.
I think I might have it written down in these notes. Is it? Yeah, the Ontaluck Games. It's like the Irish version of the Olympic Games.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's literally all I've got.
The only reference I could find for Cú Cullen was one or two articles saying the same thing. It's like, people often forget that he was a wrestler as well. And then that was it.
Yeah.
The only reference I have to it is that there's a ghost or a spirit or a spectre that at some point in a story starts laughing at him, saying that his wrestling was shite. Which
people often forget about Cuchullen's wrestling, and rightly they should. It's better that we just forget about that part of Irish history. There's a statue of him on the crossroads near my house, and now that I think about it, maybe he is wearing a wrestling leotard.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, but I don't know about now, because back in the day, there'd be Irish wrestling was a thing for a long time, and it developed over the years as martial arts do. Techniques develop and change from the early days, because it used to be more basically grappling, throwing people around, trying to take them down to the ground, mount their back, or like side wrestle them. That eventually turned into this collar and elbow wrestling, which is there's better men than me to talk about this, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Both men.
There's no better man, I'd say.
But actually, maybe not. I don't really know. Maybe if there probably is a more knowledgeable person to talk to you about this, but it won't be as entertaining. So I'll do it more succinctly. So,
right.
Both men would line up wearing a linen shirt and a jacket, neither extending past their hips. Then the shorts would be, and they look very short to me. They were very short shorts, akin to do you think Kerry footballers in the 60s?
Right.
Just like very, 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 very tight. And then depending on the area or country, because it does spread at one point, it will either plimsolls or thick, heavy leather boots. So it's one or the other.
Yeah, okay. So tiny little shoes or thick, heavy leather boots.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about short shorts that show off a tan line in a country that famously has very little sun.
Exactly. And also down the country, there's reports of lads just not wearing the tops. They're taking the tops off and just wrestling bare back, I should say.
Sure. Well, so is the collar like in judo or BJJ where it's to do with like gripping the collar?
Yeah.
Or is it to do with your collarbone?
No, it's a collar, like it's the collar of a jacket.
It's the collar
/ the shirt.
Right. So if you're doing that, then how are you able to go topless? Surely that's a winning move. If you show up to the fight and you're like, I got no collar, bitch. If I could take my elbows off, I would.
That's what I was guessing. But it looks like they just do it anyway. You just grab them by the elbow or / like you just grab their arm and then their neck, I guess, instead of their collar. Like a Muay Thai clinch in modern day, Kevin. I know how much you're a big fan of Glory.
Yeah.
Yeah, the famous kickboxing organization. No.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, there we go. Glory days. Later on, there had been a leather harness. Now, it wasn't very common. Some people would wear it. They would just it was like suspenders that also ran down your shoulders, so that they would have down to your elbow to clasp there. But they were just leather bands. There was no standard rules in Ireland in the early days in terms of the length of the shirt or jacket, and that's why eventually that became a big problem, because there was one famous fight where a guy turned up in a military jacket, and it was so long you couldn't see his where his knees were going to be moving. So the other fella complained because he said he couldn't see his kicks coming. Oh, kicking's a big part of the game.
Of course. As soon as you said collars and elbows, I was like, this is obviously going to be a kick-heavy fighting style.
Well, see, in Ireland, it was very kick-heavy because we'd wear those thick boots. Some places, maybe the more cultured, would wear plimsolls, these leather plimsolls, because you wouldn't be kicking people as much. But if you're wearing the heavy clogging boots, chances are you're going to be reefing the shins off your man.
Oh, so these aren't even roundhouse kicks. These are just kicks to the shins.
Yeah, so they're setting up, I'm going to grab your collar, you're going to grab mine. I'm going to grab your elbow, you're going to grab mine. And then we're going to we're going to stand upright and with loose arms and shoulders to show fair gamesmanship. You don't want to be a dick about this. It's all about skill and body movement and switching balances and shifting weight and such. And then while you're doing that, you'd kick the shins off them.
I love it.
Yeah. Now there's a series of different trips and all the fancy things, but I'm assuming that most of the time when lads were wearing the big leather boots, it was just hold on to your man and kick the fucking daylights out of him.
It reminds me a lot of lizard fighting. I don't know if they had that over in Carlow.
I've never seen lizard fighting.
Is
that what Michael Vick went to jail for?
2 men entered the lizard arena. I think you get your belts. You get 2 belts, and then you make a figure of 8 out of them and wrap them around your heads. And get down on all fours, and then it's sort of like sumo wrestling where you have to pull the other person across the line. I think it could be an offshoot of collar and elbow fighting.
I think that's just what happens outside of Brewbakers on a Thursday in Dundalk.
Listen, man, that's how we elect the mayor of Dundalk every 4 years.
I wouldn't put it past you. But,
a lizard fight on Park Street.
No, the jacket was it had to be strong. It had to be same as the shirt, because if it was ripping, it was seen as you were coming in bad faith. Because it's tough for the man. You're not allowed to let go. So once you grab the thing, if the hands do break from it, you can start to reposition then. But you can't just let go.
Then what about the lads who are showing up with no shirt at all?
They're down the country doing whatever they want, Kevin. They're not being,
right.
Yeah, don't pay attention to them.
So there's a weird offset of this sport that are wearing short shorts, no tops, and leather harnesses.
Yes, but even
they sort of broke out in their own.
But that might even be divided up amongst them as well. That it's not like, oh well, these do it this way, and these guys have the leather harnesses and no top. No, you could have. I have a feeling the lads down the country didn't even have shoes. I've seen Angela's ashes.
Yeah, fair enough. Some had plimsolls, some had steel boots, some just went barefoot. I also like you're very disparaging about the lads down the country in 1500 BC. It's not as if there was big city slickers on the East Coast back then.
Well,
the big boys over there with their wheels and their functioning pumps.
Well, the Pale was actually seen as the breeding ground for the best, because Kildare was the number one area for wrestling. They would be seen as, I think we'll get into...
Is Kildare in the Pale?
Parts of it, I believe. Yeah, maybe.
The parts of it more commonly known as Dublin.
Was the
maybe it is.
I know there's definitely parts of it. Selbridge is in the Pale, surely.
Naas is a real Pale feel to it.
The Dublin bus goes there. If Dublin bus goes there, it's still in the Pale.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. So it's not just kicking them. Obviously, there's a series of hooks and sweeps, some trips, some kicking. All just again.
It's not just kicking. It involves different kinds of kicking.
Well, see, if the guys were at the
you can kick a man with your boots on. You can kick a man with your plims. You can kick a man barefoot.
But see, I think that's why they were wearing the plimsolls, the dainty, nice, fashionable shoes, because that's obviously where the kicking wasn't as big of a deal. It was more trips and hooks and sweeps, because the eventual aim is to off-balance them enough to throw them onto the ground and to have their back flat on the ground with 3 points of contact. So either 2 shoulders and a hip, or 2 hips and a shoulder, that you just have to make sure that they're touching the ground, then you win.
Right.
Now, in Kildare, it was just any part above the knee. So very different rule set in Kildare.
So once you had any part of your opponent above the knee touching the ground,
yeah,
you won.
You won, yeah. You just need to get them down. So so basically they just grab each other, move around in circles, try to push, pull, trip, sweep, kick, etc. their opponent off balance, and then toss them onto the ground. There's a move, and it's still used today by people who are obsessed with this sport. They shouldn't use, but it's called Cahnav Tar Gulan, or the Flying Mare.
The Flying Mare.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically a cross between an Ippon Sionage and a Moroto Sion. I'm not going to try to pronounce judo throws. Yeah. It's basically when you know that one you see in films when you turn your back to their chest, grab them by the arm, and throw them over your head.
Right.
You've probably seen Steven Seagal do it.
Not anytime recently, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't saying in his films. Do you not follow him on Instagram?
No,
He's a cop
I've
now.
been watching. Is he?
He's a man on a man on the street doing the beat.
In what city?
I don't know.
So I want to go there and commit some crimes that involve running more than 5 meters.
Colorado, I believe.
I want to go to Colorado. I want to commit some crimes, and my getaway plan will just be to lightly jog around a corner.
It could be LA though. I haven't watched the show, but he does that. He's don't mess with him. The man, he's under siege.
Listen, fair play to Seagal.
Yeah.
But so you throw them over your shoulder as if they were a flying horse.
Yes. Now, but the difference between that and like the throws in judo is you still got to hold the guy's collar, so you can't let go of the grips you have.
Of course.
So
yes.
it's a slight variant of it where you have to hold them by the collar, spin their other arm, and then throw them over your back. But
the key to collar and elbow fighting is always, especially the collar, but especially the elbow. But especially the collar.
Well, that's the thing. They're both equally as important. It seems to be they're both.
Although the collar is a bit more important. If you exclude the elbow.
And, well, yeah, without the elbow, the collar probably is the most important thing. Yes. But at the same time, if you don't have the elbow or the collar, it's vice versa.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. Now, so,
this is what the pundits of the time would have been saying about collar and elbow.
Do you know, he wanted it more. That's why he won. He really wanted it more. He did. Doing it for the parish.
Jason, I'll tell you now. He went in there, he had a lot of heart, but he forgot about the fundamentals. He forgot about the elbow.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
He was too focused on the collar. You can't let that elbow slip.
All collar and kicking. And I'm like, look, you need your fundamentals. You
can kick all day.
There's been accounts of these fights lasting for an hour or 3.
Jesus, yeah.
Just standing up, holding someone's shirt, and trying to throw them onto the ground while they kick your legs. The number one sport in Ireland at the time.
It does seem, I know when you watch a lot of Hollywood movies and bar fights especially are very unrealistic. They're very choreographed, dukes up, one punch at a time. This seems like it is more to what you would actually see in the smoking area of Ridley's or the Foundry, say, on a Saturday night. Just 2 lads grabbing each other's collars and swinging kicks for an hour.
Yeah. Ah, it's great. Actually, I remember hearing a story of a lad coming out of the Foundry a few years ago. A big fan of Conor McGregor, so some guy started to fight him, so he dropped down to his knees to do like as McGregor kind of like crocodile walks around, going like, "I know martial arts," and the guy just went over and punched him in the top of the head and knocked him out.
Yeah.
In Dublin, Kevin, you could go about issuing a challenge by stepping into a ring, throwing a jacket on the ground, and merely waiting for someone to come pick it up.
So just an open challenge to people who aren't even there at the time.
Yeah.
What do you mean a ring? Were these just set up around the city?
Yeah, well, it's kind of
ready to go.
You don't depending on what part of the country you're in, it's going to look different. You don't really need a ring because for the most part, it's going to be that's just so people can gather around to watch, I guess.
Sure. There were a lot of purists who thought that the ring was the worst thing to happen to collar and elbow since they introduced the elbow in in 53.
I was only a fan of collar.
Yeah.
And back then it was if you could just lift them up like by the collar, kind of like a Lion King, Ma Foenya type deal. So every town had a wrestler, or had a best wrestler, I should say, and he'd fight off the people in his town before going on to take on the next town over, doing kind of like an inter-county, eventual all-Ireland type wrestling deal.
So they had regionals back then.
Yeah, which is, amazing. I think, is fantastic. You were just going around fighting lads. But again, not really fighting, just kicking their shins and throwing them onto the ground. They were seen as kings in the area, but they could be shite enough at times too, I guess, because they're also known as the hardiest man. So if you're the hardiest man in the town, you're like, well, come at me.
You're not going to start telling me that sports stars of the day who are prominently known for violent sports are unsound people in their day-to-day lives.
And what's worse is that all the women of the town are interested in them and not in the smaller artistic... No, did you play bands? Do you read books and poetry? Go feck yourself.
Can you read? Do you play the lute?
Can you kick the shins off a bigger man to prove your love to me?
That's what it's always been about.
Well, one of those men would be a Juan Thomas Costello, known locally in Sligo as Tomas Loiter Costello, with a D, which is weird. Thomas the Strong, that translates to.
Right.
Yeah, here's a little story about them.
Strong Tommy.
Here's a little story about him, penned by Douglas Hyde, the founder of the Gaelic League and the first president of Ireland. He wrote this in Avron Gra Hul Connacht, the Connacht love songs, a book of that. I think he just translated it. I don't think he was there for the actual fight.
Oh, sure, he wasn't around in 11,000. I thought he might have got his start before he was president as a collar and elbow journalist. Sports commentator. Well,
it's politics has always been seen as a bit of an old boys club in Ireland, and sure, that would make sense.
He was an old boy then,
1,000 years of age.
Touching 1,000.
But also known as Costelvach, or foot-shaped. That's a translation for Costello. So he was nominal of determinism. He was definitely going to have to be a kicking wrestler. But
he was the shape of a foot.
I know, yeah. He was a big... I would have guessed thumb. I imagine a lot of these wrestlers look like thumbs, but he was said to be a right lad. The Shanachis loved telling stories of him. Oh, he can outrun a horse, so he can hold a horse's mane and stop it from running away. So a lot of things involving horses, basically.
I guess a horse is probably the most powerful thing.
Yeah, it's what they had at the time. They're like, he could jump over a horse. He could lift a horse.
Yeah,
I was going to physical task.
Yeah, the mare throw. I was going to say like, what's our modern equivalent? And I was thinking of machinery, but then like that's measured in horsepower. Which we never really got past it.
No, it's
this car is as fast as 600 horses, I imagine.
He had a really good game today. He was a horse of a man. He was like, we still say everything's still. I'm good with it.
Listen, I haven't seen a horse in 10 years, but I know they're powerful. And I certainly wouldn't want one to judo flip me during a game of elbow and collar.
That's fair. So anyway, one day there's an unnamed champion that rocks up to Sligo, demands people wrestle him.
Right.
Sure.
So, I don't want to nitpick this story from 1,000 years ago, but he's either unnamed or he's a champion. He can't be an unnamed champion.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, and that's exactly what he is.
Not in those days when some guy rocks up and he's like, "Oh my god, this guy, he's a champion of the elbow and collar game. What's his name? I don't know. I've never heard of him before."
Maybe his name was like John Champion.
Maybe his name was John Champion. Maybe his name was
Seamus.
Maybe his name was John Cena.
Well, I did have a list of, I was going down a rabbit hole there of like the history of Irish WWE stars, and I think we might have to do a separate podcast about that as well, because we've got like Dave Finlay, there's a good couple of people from back in the day, but Becky Lynch, Sheamus, Finn Balor, some Devlin fella, there's a heap of lads and girls all over the place. I think we might have to do a history of the WWE, because Vince McMahon's grandfather was Irish.
Oh yeah,
or else great grandfather. But yeah, all of this ties into it, Kevin. Do you think the Americans licked wrestling off a stone?
No, not at all. I imagine this unnamed champion from Sligo brought it to them.
Well, so he's going around the town. No one can beat him. Absolutely nobody. He's grabbing lads by the collar, throwing them over his shoulder. There's no one can get
grabbing lads by the elbow, giving them the old horse toss.
Now the town, as is custom at the time, if your wrestling champion is basically supported by the town, so
right.
When you walk in and start bullying people, and also granted, like I said earlier, there's not really so much rules or regulations with this, so you can kill people. Like,
well, I would imagine, yes.
Yeah, so if you like, there's reports of this lad like throwing fellas into rocks, and
but he did it rock first. Some say he threw the rock at them, but it's debatable.
But so the people aren't too happy about this, because he's meant to be a bit of a bastard, and he's beating everyone and killing lads, which is very unsound. So
I'd say Tommy Strong would have something to say about this.
Well, that's the thing now. The whole county gets together, comes to watch all these boys take on this champion. He's molly whopping the feck out of him, Kevin.
Yeah.
But there's a boy, a young buck in the crowd, a young Costello. He begs his uncle Ora to let him fight the champ.
A young foot-shaped boy. He looked like 5 toes and a heel.
Ora initially goes, no, not at all. You're only a chap. You're a teenager. Look at you, and he's a champion killing fellas. So he just
you're barely an ankle.
So as is his wont to get his will and his way, what do you think he does, Kevin? As a child, when you've been taken out for the day by your uncle, like, or a parent, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't know. Was he?
You just start annoying the shite out of him.
Yeah, you just start saying the same thing over and over again. Especially if it's an uncle that doesn't have their own kids and they're not tuned in to the.
Yeah, they haven't developed that muscle of being able to tune out the monotonous screams of youth.
Yeah.
So
they're not used to the war of attrition.
Yeah. So he just eventually cedes and says, "All right, feck it, sure." There's like, despite the entire crowd,
you can go fight this lad who showed up. I'm not listening to you anymore.
Well, let's see. He looks.
He's killing men all over the place. But if you ask me one more time, I'm gonna kill you. So you may as well just let him do it.
Well, he says he looks at his arm, or he looks at his arms. He feels them, and he's like, well, yeah, you're a fairly strong young fella. Why not? Go on, stop annoying me. Go out there.
Yeah.
So he does, and the whole crowd, Kevin, awful worried. They're going, "Oh no, sure, the young lad. This lad's killing everyone. The young lad's going to die." And the champ, Kev, they're laughing at him.
Yeah. And sorry, like, when you say there's a crowd, is this in some sort of a stadium, or is it just around a ring in the middle of the town?
I'm going to say around the ring in the middle of a town, like either in the market square or out in a field just outside the town for traffic congestion issues.
And everyone's just wedged in on top of each other.
Yeah.
No elbow room.
No, you're talking like...
Only collars.
And throughout the history of this, there's been, like, you could have a wrestling match in front of 5-10 people, or it could go up to thousands. Like, it was a big deal. So, what was I saying? Yeah, sure, the champ's there.
So he walks up.
Yeah, champ's laughing at him. He's walking up and he's going, "Sure, not to hope, young buck. You're not a chance." So the ref, I don't know if there is a ref. I was going to say the referee starts. Probably isn't one.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like I don't know what they would do.
Yeah, so
the lads can kind of do what they want. I mean, there's no real point to a referee.
They grab a hold of each other, as is the style and the rules.
Yeah.
Collar and elbow, obviously. Now,
both. Of course.
There's reports of it being. It could either be the belt brace system or else not. I don't really know if it's that important because they pull into each other, they start wrestling, and all of a sudden the unnamed champion isn't really moving. And Costello's there going, he has him held and he's trying to can't really, what am I doing here? And he yells out to his uncle and he's like, why isn't this lad wrestling me? And then they realised, such is Costello's strength, the first time he pulled him towards him, he shattered the man's back, broke it in bits.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have no idea if any of that's true or not. It was just,
I'd say that is true. How old is the child?
Teenager,
and he's just broken a man's back by pulling him too heartily.
Mm-hmm.
And killed him stone dead.
Well,
or is he paralysed?
No, I think he killed him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or what happened there was the town were like, this lad's a bit of a bollocks. Should we just murder him?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think we've touched on this a few times, but there was definitely, I mean, how easy, like if you walk into a town and you're acting the bollocks and the whole town's like, let's just kill him and say nothing.
Yeah.
Or let's just kill him and say, this small foot-shaped child broke his back in a game of collar and elbow. I mean, the guards are going to look into that.
They invented a sport to cover up.
Yeah, it's called, as he's sweating in the interrogation room, pulling on his collar, collar and elbow. Very popular.
And so back to our actual story, because that's just a nice little divergence. So in Ireland, it was seen as a common man sport, but as the Irish travelled the world, they brought the sport with them.
This does seem like the sport of the common people, yes.
It is, but then once you start going with the plimsolls instead of just kicking people,
of course.
It's then
put
seen
a little finesse into it.
It's quite refined. Around the rest of the world, they think it's more highbrow because it says it's less strength based and more skill. Because once they because in other countries, once they stop trying to kick the living shins out of people, they it's more grappling, balance, and like the weight of moving people around, similar to judo in that sense, and wrestling. And most countries in some form have something like that, so it took off.
Yeah.
Some people trace it spread in America back to a bunch of Irish lads from Kildare/Ireland, moving over to the east coast of America, so like New England and Vermont in the 1840s. Their descendants joined the Civil War, and they taught it to other soldiers. And from around then, it would have went back and spread around the rest of the country. And it was still it was mostly popular up in the north part for years, and then it spread around with the Civil War.
Those Confederates didn't know what was happening. Didn't know what was coming at them, as they were grappled by the 54th Infantry of Kildare, collar and elbows.
Well, actually, I'll tell you about some famous people. Firstly, I'll let you know that an Englishman by the name of Henry Moses Duffer wrote out a proper list of rules during this time when it was spreading through America. In 1873, he published a manual or guidelines of the sport. He was a well-known champion and legend of collar and elbow wrestling, so he knew a thing or two.
He wrote the book on it.
He did, to be fair. And he also banned the use of the heavy boots, which...
Controversial.
It is. But you know what they say, don't kick the legs off of someone and then they can wrestle again tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know... What's like Aronofsky has that trilogy of films about, Black Swan, The Fighter, and The Wrestler, about very like physical activities that we find entertaining, but aren't really sustainable past, once you're past like
30.
Once you're past 30, basically you're on a downward spiral, and how there's little to no support networks for these people after they leave their physical prime. You wouldn't really have the trouble with collar and elbow because they'd all just die.
Yeah,
sure, your shins wouldn't work when you're 40, but you'd be dead anyway. So
it doesn't really. Yeah, it's not as.
It doesn't really matter.
No,
that's tragic.
That's fair. Well, a man called Ed.
The worst thing we ever did for sports stars was letting them live too long.
Well, I think that is actually true because it's sad to see a fighter in the later days. So I think, at your best, show us then, and then give us 5 years afterwards to give analysis, and then as soon as you make one, like because I was meant to say it was like he's gone now. It's out the back. Let's make glue out of him. Yeah. A man called Ed James defined the clear rules of victory shortly afterwards. Just the 3 points, like I'd said before, but now it's in the rule book.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And this was the rule set that was popularized in America in the 19th century. In terms of famous people, have you heard of James Maury? He was a famous educator whose parents were from Ireland.
James Maury.
Yeah, he had an institution there where he'd teach a lot of the up-and-coming fancy boys in America. Thomas Jefferson was actually there for 2 years.
Yeah,
and in his academy, he'd make all the lads Irish wrestle. So,
okay.
Yeah, George Washington, Kev, was he went there as well, and he became a statewide, possibly colony-wide champion in Irish collar and elbow wrestling. That's amazing. Other US presidents to have Irish collar and elbow wrestle include the 12th president of America, Zachary Johnson, as well as William Howard Taft.
Yeah.
He went to Yale and was a 225-pound wrestling champ. So that's exactly the type of guy you want to be the president. It's like...
Exactly, yeah. And there's definitely people voted for him because of his superiority in the collar and elbow ring.
I'm more so just hoping that he was like... He was deserving of the position and role anyway, but then also, as a caveat, if you do disagree with me, I'll take you outside and wrestle you to the ground.
Yes.
It's like,
we do it old style. No shirts, leather harness, heavy boots. Let's go.
Was it Hemingway? Was it Hemingway that said that? It's like, I'm the best writer in the room, and if anyone else thinks that that's not true, let's step outside and find out who the best writer is.
That's, I know Taft is from Louth. I mean, he's not really, but his ancestor Robert Taft, I think, was from Louth.
Sure, that could be where it came from.
He had the Cuchullin's blood in him.
He did. Other famous American wrestling presidents. Now, these were all referenced. I don't know if the collar and elbow was their specific. Obviously, there's other types of wrestling, but Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, Chester A. Arthur, Theodore Roosevelt. Now, they weren't, again, not specific collar and elbow champs or wrestlers, but they probably had to partake in it because, as was the way back then, regardless of what your style was, a lot of the bouts were mixed. So it was, right, pick 3 different styles of wrestling, like Greco-Roman, catch, and collar and elbow. And then one round of each. So they would have all had to partake in it at some point. Obviously, first to win two of those styles. Or else, I guess, alternatively, it could be a best of 5, and it would be 2, 2, and 1. And you'd pick 2 styles, so it could be like Greco-Roman and then Irish collar and elbow. You do 2 rounds of each, and then flip a coin, and then you pick the style based on the coin flip for the last round.
Right.
But, now, see, at this stage, it has spread all around America. Like I said earlier, it was one of the, if not the biggest sport in Ireland during the 18th and 19th centuries. However, what happened in Ireland around then, Kev?
The British tried to stamp out any semblance of Irish culture.
That is a big part of it. Well, I'll start.
The famine.
I was going to say I'll start with the famine.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is why, like, also it spread then because of that to other countries. But in our nation, wrestling just wasn't a thing as much because obviously 1 million people died during the famine, 1 million people emigrated.
Some of the best collar and elbowers were amongst the dead, which was the real tragedy.
True. And then do you remember the coercion acts that I talked about in the Phoenix Park murders episode?
Yeah.
So basically that thing was part of the Land League. You couldn't be gathering with people doing Irish things, couldn't be talking in Irish, couldn't be wrestling lads while kicking them in the shins. They just didn't want us having any crack. They looked at the ways we lived our lives.
They didn't understand culture.
No.
No.
So yeah, it just started to fade out over the years. The National Council, Comhairle na Siúnta, published a book in 1908 which said, well, speaking of both wrestling and handball, the other Gaelic sport.
Yeah.
Because it's never
the other sport.
Yeah, there's like hurling and football, and then they always have to handball and wrestling were much like Hugo Simpson, just kind of pushed to the wayside, forgotten about.
Yeah.
So outside
the pale, handball is pretty big. Like you can see handball alleys all up and down the country.
Yeah, but it's just not like you don't have it on RTE as the All Ireland handball final. Like it's just not.
Well, you don't have a lot of much on RTE because they sold the rights to all the GAA games back in the good times.
GAA is now rugby.
Yeah,
we're just
I
not
think they
telling
sold the
anyone.
rights to that. They sold the rights to those games as well to TV3.
Everything's gone. Yeah, they've no money. And all
gone.
of the children's programming's been bought in, and they're wondering why people aren't watching TV, and it's because for the last 20 years they've been putting the same people that nobody likes. Like if Owen McDermott is still on Irish television when I go home, I'm like, right, well, I'm not paying the TV license. I'm not doing it. I don't.
Yeah.
You can try and make it the internet subscription license thing all you want, but I'm telling you that if 100,000 people consistently every year complain about that guy, how bad he is, and nobody likes him, and nobody wants him there, and then you just make him the face of every single TV show, of course we're not going to watch it.
Yeah. Do you see, they got in trouble recently, or they got in trouble there over New Year's Eve for that Waterford Whispers bit that they ran.
Oh no, I missed that.
They ran some segment about, like, it was like a, reading in the ears type thing, and they were like, one of the big news stories of the year, God was fingered in the Me Too movement, and it's just a picture of, like, God getting taken away. And they got, like, 1,500 emails in complaining about it.
But look, that's the problem, I imagine, because that you can make
who's watching?
That's the thing. You can make good content.
New Year's Eve countdown, and what's the crossover between that demographic and the demographic that's gonna know the phone number off by heart to ring in to complain to RTE?
But that's the thing, because I was going to say that you could actually make great content, and then in Ireland, chances are people won't watch it live. So you're only going to get the people who watch RTE on television live, which are, I don't know, like, they're going to be the type that actually complain, and they're not going to understand good quality. But if enough bashing, because maybe some of our listeners watch RTE.
Yeah, maybe.
But I was saying that the National Council published this thing. In the book, it said that of wrestling and handball, said, although both these pastimes have been on the Gaelic programme since its first appearance, neither has ever received any official encouragement, yet both are games in which Gaels have excelled. That such a wide area and so popular and meritorious a branch of athletics should have received only nominal recognition is only another instance of how partial and halting has been the management of Gaelic athletic affairs. Feckin' shots fired.
Wait, but is that not a booklet from the GAA themselves?
From the National Council.
Right. Okay. So, yeah.
They're saying, we've got these two other things that we're really good at historically, and you've feckin' mismanaged them, you shitehawks.
Yeah, we're really good at them because no one else. Although I suppose you're saying it did spread pretty far.
Hey,
so
don't use that as a way to denigrate our sporting achievements, because if you want to do the same thing, I live in a country now where every single sport that they excel at are things that only they play.
Yeah.
American football, baseball.
Sure, yeah.
Even basketball for the most
basketball
part.
to a large extent, yeah.
Other countries play it, other countries don't have access to 5 million people over 6'8" who just play it non-stop and don't play soccer. Yeah. So like, it's just them. One time they didn't win the Olympics, and they went back and got all of their professionals to come back and said, never again.
Yeah, what was that, the dream team of 1990 or something?
92 or whatever year it was. Yeah, it was when Jordan went over, I believe. And they've kept it up since. Like, it's your rite of passage. It's not even, it's more difficult to win an NBA championship than it is to win the Olympics. Because as long as you're American and on the team, you're guaranteed a gold medal. But there were a few small attempts in 1906 to get some wrestling events going up in Dublin.
I've seen them. They're outside of Coppers on Friday night.
Well, obviously now with COVID, it's going to, I assume it's kind of wrecked most things back home. But Irish whip wrestling, or whatever the name of that, over the top wrestling, that's what it is. OTT, the one where you'll have, like, they'll do themed nights and you'll have guys come in wearing, like, balaclavas fighting the Brits and stuff like that. Like, they do WWE style wrestling with, like, crazy themed characters, but set in Ireland. And it's very much so a drinking heavy event. They used to do it in the Tivoli. I think they did it in the National Basketball Arena or something last year or the year before. But they'll get a couple of thousand people
NBA.
at them.
The real NBA.
Yeah, the NBA are coming over to fight the Irish over the top rope wrestlers.
No, I thought it was the National Basketball Academy or whatever you said.
That was the arena. It's just one of those weird coincidences of exactly what I was talking about at the time.
Yeah,
that has no reference to it. But yeah, there was an attempt. those wrestling events didn't really take off, and there had been an attempted revival of the tall teen games in the 20s and the early 30s, but wrestling was left out of that. And we'll discuss those versions of the tall teen games in the next season in that episode that I will do. Think of this episode more as like the Silmarillion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that come out before or after Lord of the Rings, though?
No, I was just going to say it's shite.
But yet we'll stretch it into a 3-part miniseries. It's more like The Hobbit.
Nah.
But so which one of our or how many of our Taoiseachs or presidents were accomplished collar and elbow men?
None.
Not even Hyde. Was he
Couldn't
just a
find one.
commentator?
Couldn't find one. I think Hyde just was
Yeah.
translating that book of love songs in Connacht. I don't know if he had much interest in the wrestling itself, but I
know our presidents anyway were by and large old bastards.
Very true.
I
very
mean, I
true.
suppose they could have wrestled when they were younger, but by the time they were I think the average age of the presidency until Mary McAleese came along was like 77.
Much like how like Khabib Nurmagomedov, there's videos of him wrestling bears when he's a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that Michael D. Higgins wrestles his dogs now?
I'd say so. That'd be a sight. That's what we need in these COVID times as one last push for morale to get us over the spring hump. Coming up to St. Patrick's Day, he should definitely release a video of himself outside Aris and Uteron wrestling with his dog, because it's about the same size as him.
There's the two of them. They're huge.
Oh, one of them's dead.
Oh no!
That was big news last year. Did you not see that?
Was it COVID related?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, so then, as I was saying, it fairly died off in Ireland. Obviously, hurling and football took precedence. And in America, it was contending with a bunch of other different types of grappling arts.
Yeah.
And its popularity as an individual sport was pretty much over by the 1890s.
Right.
With the last American collar and elbow championship bout between John McMahon and James H. McLaughlin happening in 1877 or 1878.
Yeah.
McLaughlin was 6'2" and weighed 230 pounds. McMahon 5'10" and tipped the scales at 185, which is a big difference.
That is a big difference. Are you going to tell me that McMahon was related to Vince McMahon?
No, when I was Googling it, almost every single place I went to like research him, everywhere said no relation. Like, no relation.
That was just the first line in his biography. No, it's not what you think.
If I found one person who was just incorrect, I would have used that as my reference point, and this entire episode would have been about that guy influencing WWE.
Yeah, sure.
But McMahon won. The fight was for £2,500, and McMahon won 2 out of 3 of the rounds, I should say. So he was the new champ and the last champ. But also up until that point, never lost a fight in his whole career. 17 years long, never got put in his back.
Jesus.
I know.
That is impressive.
Greco-Roman, freestyle, and catch as you can
My
wrestling.
favorite types of rap.
Yeah, but that all took over. But lots of the techniques from Irish collar and elbow have been incorporated and amalgamated into these martial arts now over the years. So in that sense, the tradition's somewhat alive. Obviously, high school, college, and Olympic wrestling are big things over here in the States. And a little part of that would have came from over our way. There's the famous manual and like the coaches from, I forget the guy's name. I have it written here. So I've fucking deleted it, I think. There's some famous... I looked into him and he wasn't Irish, but he...
So feck him.
And he didn't give any props. He never like referenced it in the footnotes of a manual that he wrote about like the history, like the wrestling. And it seemed like that was a case book that was used for decades. Like, this is how you wrestle in America. But historians have gone back through it and been like, well, all of these techniques here are direct descendants of Irish collar and elbow wrestling. So we're part of it. We're not the main thing. We're just a small influence, but we are definitely in there.
We definitely help.
Yeah. Now,
that is cool.
Here's a couple of terms that I found as I was going through the whole thing. If you were a practitioner, if you were a fighter, if you were a wrestler, they wouldn't call you a wrestler. You'd be known as a scuffler or a tripper.
A tripper.
Yeah.
I really, scuffling. I really like that term for it, or a scuffler.
A scuffler, yeah. I'd be into it.
Yeah.
It's the same as like a schmozzle. The there's all here's here. I'm not going to explain what these moves are, but I will tell you a bunch of the moves that people would use.
Yeah, they're all farmyard animal related moves.
Some, because we've got the trippet, we've got the loose leg, Howard's Hank, the flying hobby, the buttock, the flying mare, the snap mare, the double touch, the blackguard snatch, and the Irish whip.
These are all sex moves that I've tried at various points.
Well, if you can
the double touch, the Irish whip, classics.
If you could get them onto the ground, now granted, in the most popular form of the rules, it wasn't really incorporated with groundwork. Earlier versions of it would, and you can find that, like the Market Cross up in Meath, they actually have etchings of people doing old school wrestling before collar and elbow. So you can find people doing like ground wrestling and stuff there. But when you're on the ground, we've got the collar sleeper, the sleeper hold, the Nelson and crotch, the bridge.
There's no way they had the Nelson.
They did.
No.
And crotch, because that's the thing. It's like, which I've always thought about as well. You know, with like the Nelson or the half Nelson. Like, okay, you've got their arms behind their back, but did you ever think about giving them a quick, swift kick in the dick?
Yes, we lost something along the way. Some of the majesty.
Yeah, but now we can bring it back now. It's not too late, Kevin.
Well, now we know.
And then you've got the bridge and the hip bump, which the hip bump definitely is one of your sex moves.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I've slept in vans with you.
Yeah, it's a good combination. The buttock and then the hip bump, followed by the double touch.
But, in terms of where we're at with it now, in 2019 in Heidelberg, Germany, people came from all over the world there to compete in a collar and elbow tournament, which is fairly cool. I saw the videos. It's not well attended. It's not like...
People came from all over the world. One person from Australia. One person from Brazil.
People came from all over the world to compete, but no one wanted to watch. So it's like 20 lads from all over the world.
Right,
just like,
okay.
Yeah, just doing that. But
it's just like stand-up comedy, and that the people involved in it are, by and large, the only people interested in it.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless it's at like the highest form of it, and there's no in between. And it
was a good gig last night, man. There's 25 people there. 22 performers.
Yeah.
Good turnout.
But 4 of them said I was funny, so that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you this, Kev. This is the last note I have for the entire story, unless I've missed things as I've gone through, which if I have, I'll catch them in the next
not
episode.
Possible.
Probably not. I'll tell you this, Kev. In 2020, in a little old place called Dublin City University.
Okay.
Our
old alma mater.
I was going to say, if you didn't know what that meant, it actually means DCU. It's where we went to school. Because it's...
Right, yes.
Yeah. They set up a fucking collar and elbow wrestling society.
Fair play to them. I assume this was in 2020, January, February.
I very much so assume so.
Or maybe it was after the COVID breakout, and they're like, reminds me of the old cholera breakout, and then they went into a collar and elbow spiral.
But yeah, that's if anyone wants to practice Irish collar and elbow wrestling, just go to DCU, get a college degree.
Yeah, go to DCU or walk into your local square, throw your jacket on the ground, and just stare at people as they walk by.
You've been doing that for years anyway, and it's only ever me that fights.
I have. Yeah, but now at least we know. We know the story behind it. It's good to know where it comes from. But well, I know we were talking before we started recording about our goals for the year. I'd say we should try and get a collar and elbow wrestling at some point this year.
I will collar and elbow wrestle you at a live Shite Talk event.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Okay, right, cool. That'll be something to look forward to.
I'm gonna fucking kick the shins off you.
I'm gonna come in, go get my special steel capped boots for this. We'll do a classic 2 out of 3. One lizard fight, one collar and elbow fight, and then we'll flip a coin to see what the third one is.
We just do a drunken arm wrestle for the last.
Yeah, we'll do our own variation of collar and elbow.
Yeah, we can let the fans decide. We can put the video up on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, and people will pay for it. It'll be like the Paulie Malignaggi, Conor McGregor tapes. But so is that only the second combat episode I've done? Because I did the first one we've ever done was the Boston Strong Boy.
See, at some point during this, when you're talking about collar and elbow being a sort of fancy sport, which I thought was a bit weird. But then, yeah, like when the other fancy sport, elite sport, was pugilism, which was just punching lads.
Punching lads and eye gouging and pulling hair and kicking them in the dick, and like none of that happened in this. It's just we're gonna grapple, we're gonna wrestle.
This was a gentleman's sport.
It really was, and I kind of thought, right, it's a bit mad that they're saying it's all of skill because you're kicking people and whatnot. But the way they'd said it, when I'd referenced there that McLaughlin in the last championship fight, what's he, 45 pounds heavier and about 4 or 5 inches taller. And it's the smaller man that wins because it's a game. It's much like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a game of skill, and if you're big and strong, it's going to help. But if the other lad's better than you, the strength isn't really going. It's not going to help you all too much.
Well, those pugilist fights, like they went on for hours as well.
Yeah, crazy.
I guess there was nothing else to do at the time, but I feel like I would get bored if I was watching two lads collar and elbow for like 3 hours.
Because I wouldn't have a problem watching lads fight for 3 hours, because that's going to be fantastic. But the collar and elbow, I'm like, if you're going to be just walking around in circles for an hour, I'm not watching that. Like, I'll watch a lot of MMA, but I'll also still admit that, like, if it's super boring if it's just someone lying on someone on the ground, I'm probably that's when I'm going to go to the toilet or grab a beer. So it's fair. Yeah,
but people probably had better attention spans back then. They'd probably walk all the way across the county to see the Tommy Strong of Sligo stand in a ring with some unknown stranger for 3 hours.
I mean, I'd do that. I've told you before, I drove all the way to Baltinglass to watch a hot air balloon festival in which over the space of a weekend, not a single hot air balloon went up into the sky. Yeah,
but you drove all the way. You're like, you lived about 20 minutes away from Baltinglass.
Yeah. That's a lot for me.
That is a lot, I suppose. Cool. Well, that's it.
Should we do the sign off?
I have nothing more to say about collar and elbow.
Yeah, no, so that's it. So if you want to see some collar and elbow wrestling at some point in 2021, keep an eye out for the Shite Talk live gigs that we're going to be doing. Come down and see those episodes. I'm going to kick 7 shades of shite into Kevin's shins.
I'm going to be wearing Shite Talk shin guards, which we'll be able to sell on our website, Big Cartel. Shite Talk History of Big Cartel. You can go on there and buy t-shirts, and coming soon, Shite Talk shin guards for all your collar and elbow needs, and also the leather harnesses, but for legal reasons we'll sell those as like collar and elbow things, but use your own discretion.
You can buy those at the live events. You can't buy those off the internet. You have to come down and get them in person.
They're taxed as a different commodity here.
When you say shin guards, do you mean that we're actually going to make those, or we're just going to tell people to buy about 10 t-shirts and wrap them around? Because that'll be roughly the same thing.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be thick. There's going to be some of our thicker t-shirts.
And they're fruit of the loom anyway, so the thickness, the quality is not in doubt anyway. You can just wear one of those t-shirts.
Put one of those on your shins and you could survive a kick from a plim-toed Jason Brennan. That's our guarantee. I made them stitch that into the label.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all we have for this week. So, Shafter, good luck. We'll chat to you soon.
Goodbye. See you next week.